Tonight I played the 2-5 at the Red Rock. The game looked pretty good, so I decided to play. But there were a lot of hands that I didn't know what to do. I had some tough spots where players were putting me all in. I had decent hands, but I didn't know if I should call. A lot of all-in pots, a lot of money flying around. At the end of the night, I moved over to 1-2, and there was a few nice hands in that session. But overall, I'm playing a lot better poker. It's a lot more fun. Playing 2-5 is more tough, but you also learn a lot more, which is good. So take a look at the hands. Let me know what you think. I'm looking for some feedback on how you would have played certain hands in this vlog. Would you have checked the river, or did I make a good bet? We're on the button now with ace-8 offsuit, playing 2-5 no limit. It's a limp pot, so I'm going to call with my ace-8. We're going 4 ways to the flop. 20 bucks in the middle. The flop comes out. It's ace-10. We flop trip aces, and it's a draw-heavy board as well. Every player checks. It gets around to me. I decide to bet 15. 2 players fold, and we're going heads up to the turn. The 7 of spades comes out. My opponent checks, and I bet 30 bucks here. There's multiple draws. The backdoor flush draw comes. Straight draws are out there, so I want to make him pay to see the river card. He calls the 30. He checks on the river to the 4 of hearts. Nothing connects. We have trip aces, and I think I'm good. But I also think it's going to be tough to get called by a big bet. So I only bet 25 bucks on the river, and I pretty much price him in to call, knowing that I don't think he has trip aces. He calls, I show my ace, and he mucks his cards. Do you think that river bet was good, or should I just have checked? Because I'm most likely not going to get called by a better hand. You won't believe the hand my opponent had after we got all in. We're in the small blind with 6-7 off. It gets raised to 15 under the gun. There's a couple callers, so I decide to come along too. We're going 4 ways to the flop, and we flop the nuts. 4-5-8 comes out. We have 6-7. We make a straight. There is a flush draw with 2 clubs on the board. I check. The original raiser checks. The last player to act bets 40. I raise it up to 140. The original raiser pre-flop folds, and the next player goes all in. He has me covered. I have about 350 more to call, but obviously I'm calling, not going anywhere with the nuts. He thinks for a little bit. He folds his cards. I snap call. I flip over the 6-7, and my opponent also has the 6-7. How crazy is that? We're going to end up chopping this pot. The king of spades comes. The 9 of spades comes. We both flop the nuts straight, and we chop it for over $1,000 pot. Would you have gone all in pre-flop with my hand? We have ace-king off under the gun. I decide to raise to 20. There's a raise up. There's a 3-bet to 60. It gets back around to me. I'm the last to act. I could either call here and play my ace-king out of position, or I could go all in for 500 and see if my opponent's going to call me or not. I decide to take the second option. I go all in. I got 520 bucks. He raised to 60. He has 460 more to call. And he does end up calling. So we're headed to the board, $1,000 pot. The board comes king 9-4, queen 7. It's a good flop for me because we have top pair. I show ace king. My opponent mucks his hand, and we take down a double up. Big pot for me. We take down $1,000 pot and get a nice double up. What would you have done on the flop here? We got ace queen suited on the button. A player raises to 15. I decide to 3-bet to 65. And then there's actually a 4-bet by the player who made it 15 originally. He raises it again up to 145. I think for a little bit whether to make a 5-bet or to just flat call here. But the fact that we're on the button and in position, I call. We're headed to a flop, heads up, a lot of money in the middle. The flop comes 10-5-7 with 2 spades, and my opponent bets 140. That's a half pot size bet, and now it's on me. I honestly don't know what to do here. I haven't played that many 4-bet pots, but Eventually, I decide to fold my hand, thinking that he's got some type of pocket pair. We didn't flop strong enough to continue, and I throw my cards into the muck. Did I make a big mistake not going all in on the turn? We got one of my favorite hands, King Jack of spades in the big blind. A player in middle position makes it 20 bucks pre-flop. There's one caller, it gets to me, I also call. We're going 3 ways to the flop, and the dealer puts out a fantastic flop. King, 9, we flop trips. There's 2 clubs on board. We have trip kings with a jack. I decide to slow play and check. The original raiser pre-flop checks, and the other player bets 30. Because I'm out of position, I decide to just call here, and the other player also calls. We're going 3 ways to the turn. The turn is the 8 of clubs, now bringing a flush on board. I check, the other player checks, and then the other player, last to act, bets 150 on the turn. I have a tough decision here whether to call, fold, or raise. You could really do all 3. Tough spot for me. I'm out of position. I'm probably going to have to call another big bet on the river if I call here. So I thought for a good 30 seconds and threw my cards into the muck. I don't know what the right play was on the turn. What do you guys think I should have done? You always got to be careful to put a lot of chips in the middle on a limp pot. I have 10 jack offsuit. I'm under the gun. I limp. A few other players limp. It gets around to the big blind. He checks. We're going 5 players to the flop. The flop comes out jack queen 6 with 2 diamonds. We flop middle pair. And because it was a limp pot, I decide to bet 8 bucks just to see what other players are going to do here. We get a couple players to call, a couple fold. We're going to the turn now. The turn comes the 10 of spades. I bet 20 bucks. The player behind me raises on the turn to 75. And the player behind him goes all in for a little bit less. I'm now put into a very tough spot. But after weighing my options, I didn't think the player behind me would call for all my chips. So I decided to pretty much go all in. I put 200 more in there, and the player behind me immediately calls. We have a 3-way all-in pot. I have 2 pair. We go to the river. The river's the 5 of spades. Nothing connects. No draws get there. But somebody did turn a straight. I flip over 10 jack. He flips over 8, 9. And the player in the middle position is going to scoop the entire pot, and we lose a big one. Tough hand. I rebought for another 300, and one of the next few hands I got pocket queens in late position. A few limpers in front of me, I raise to 12, the button comes along with one other player. We're going 3 ways to the flop. The flop is deuce, 7 rainbow, which is amazing for my hand. I'm trying to keep players in the hand, so I bet 15 on the flop, and I get 1 player to call. The turn is the queen of spades. We make a full house. I pretty much have the nuts. At this point, I have the second nuts, and I want to try to do a check raise on the turn because I know I'm going to be betting on the river, so I don't want to 3-barrel him. I want to kind of mix it up a little bit. I check. He bets 20. I raise to 60. He thinks, and he makes the call. The river card is the 6 of diamonds. Doesn't change anything for me. I know I still have the best hand. I go all in because I only have about 100 more. And my opponent quickly makes the call to the bad news of my full house. And the river card got me paid because my opponent showed 6-7 for a river 2 pair. Even though if I had an overpair of the 7s, I would have beat him with 2 pair because there was 2 deuces on board.